From Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. Today's conversation is taking us to Japan. We're talking with Nasreen Azimi about her life as an independent woman growing up in Iran and traveling around the world before settling in Hiroshima. She's a published author, visiting professor, and senior advisor to United Nations Institute for Training and Research. Nasreen is most recently the founder of Green Legacy Hiroshima, a project to spread worldwide the seeds and saplings of Hiroshima's A-bomb survivor trees.
Sabrina, I think one of the most interesting parts of this conversation is really the global lens through which she looks at womanhood. I mean, she has traveled all over the world. She's sharing stories today about how her father's decision to invest in his daughter's education completely transformed the trajectory of her life. And she's sharing the story of her evolution from an oppressive Middle Eastern society to a lifetime of social impact, education, and advocacy. I mean, the travels that she's taking us on today are truly impressive.
You're so right. And I think the real heart of this story is Nasreen's commitment to be true to herself, to define her life on her own terms, which is something that women everywhere wrestle with. We can't wait for you all to hear this conversation. Nasreen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you, Cassia. I'm very happy to be here. It's the first podcast of this nature that I've ever done, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it for people other than you. So very happy to be here, even from Hiroshima.
So Nasreen, I've known you my whole life. You are one of my mother's closest friends and share memories with her back to your grade school days in Iran. I've always looked up to you as a mentor and a model for how one woman can have such a global footprint. You are a published author, visiting professor, a New York Times contributor, and your diverse history and global lens really highlights how your evolution from an oppressive Middle Eastern society has turned into a lifetime of social impact and education and advocacy, really. So today you are the senior advisor to UNITAR, United Nations Institute for Training and Research, and a founder of an incredible project called Green Legacy Hiroshima. But your story really starts as a young girl growing up in Iran before the 1979 revolution. Tell us about your childhood there.
Yes, that would be a wonderful starting point. I was born actually not in Tehran, but in the south, by the very close to what is today the Iraqi border, near the Persian Gulf, in the city of Ahvaz. I have very few recollections of Ahvaz itself, but I can reconstitute it in my mind because of the happiness my parents had living there. It was becoming a prosperous city. I was born in 1959, so Iran had, just gone through one disaster after another, and occupation and loss and war. And somehow from the mid-50s onwards, limping, struggling, it was sort of moving in a direction that allowed a lot of people to imagine a better life, imagine education for their children, imagine all sorts of things that were absent at the time my parents were born. My parents retained very beautiful memories of Ahvaz. It broke my heart a few years ago when I read that it was now listed as one of the most polluted cities, if not the most polluted large city in the world. I lived in Iran till the age of 6. We moved very soon after my birth to Tehran. And I do not have very fond memories of Iran. I think my first beautiful memories of early childhood were when we went to Pakistan. Pakistan suddenly opened very new horizons for me. My brother and I, both born in a Muslim family, we attended the convent of Jesus and Mary in Karachi, which was at the time the capital of Pakistan. And I think this sudden shock of exposure to all these differences, well, already Pakistan, which was very different from Iran, and the language was different, the culture was different. And then in the middle of that, being plunged into an Irish sisters school, and being exposed to English for the first time, being exposed to Christianity for the first time. That was really, I think, transformative for my 6-year-old person.
You had an incredibly global upbringing, or at least kind of a global lens from a very early age.
I guess so. I think I would say both my strengths and vulnerabilities come from the fact that I was exposed so young to such difference of peoples and environments. The good side of it is that you could leave me anywhere and I'll probably manage to find some beauty and depth.
That sounds like such a strength to me. Why vulnerability?
Because it means that nowhere do I really have roots. So you need to balance that. I think where now I'm 61, and where the bits and pieces are being reconciled is that you can be what in Persian poetry, we refer often to the ney, which is the reed. And this idea of the floating reed is very powerful in Persian poetry because Iran was a country forever occupied and figuring wars and occupation. So people had sort of gotten used to moving around. And this concept of being a floating reed is very powerful, I think, in our psyche. The weakness of that is that you're forever alien. And I think where the bits and pieces are coming together is that I feel comfortable with being alien and yet being citizen everywhere, insofar as I can have some depth and understanding. In other words, the idea of, I really don't like this idea of a global citizen, but I think I feel comfortable with being a human being trying to understand, even if not run roots everywhere. So, in that sense, from the age of 6, I've had to figure out how deep a root do I need to take my place here, and where is it okay to just be breezing through in a way.
You, I would say, have a pretty unique story with your upbringing. It's not so often that you hear of young girls and their families moving from Iran to Pakistan and back, and having that, like Cassia said, that global lens. And when you came back, you were now in a Jewish school. Is that correct?
When we came back, I spent 2 years, the last 2 years of elementary school, which in Iran is 6 years, was then 6 years. And they were some of the most miserable, other than the revolution years. Those 2 years were very difficult.